It's really easy to forget that when you're watching anything, technically, half of what you're watching, you're actually listening to. Whereas pictures tend to stay in our minds, sound, and especially music, is so vital to informing the viewer on how to feel.
Not so high! Not so high!
But how difficult is it to synchronize the moving picture with sound? Today, I want to talk about working with some incredibly talented friends of mine and recording their vocal performance and trying to get it to sync up with my old movie camera. I mean, how hard could it be? Hi everyone, I'm Andy the Vintage Filmmaker, and I'd like to see a little more vintage in our movies. If you're new to this channel, welcome! I'm so happy you're here! We've recently hit like a crazy milestone of 500 subscribers.
What?
You guys, what is happening? Seriously. Also, a lot of you have been commenting and sending me emails. I'm getting it all. I'm so sorry I haven't had time to reply. In my real life, I'm traveling and doing a lot of freelance work, and it has just been exhausting. But in all sincerity, thank you so much for everyone out there who's been watching and supporting and commenting and liking and subscribing. Okay, on with the video. The moving image and sound have always intended to be together. A lot of us film history buffs know about kind of the early origins of film distribution, kind of predating the movie theater, and how people would put in their nickel. They'd look through this little scope and get a pay-per-view individual experience. But if you look at those old photographs, you'll notice something. They're wearing what looks like a stethoscope. So that was a phonograph that was loosely sunk up with the moving picture.
I am the queen of the fairies, and I'm going to cast a spell over the giants.
The problem is, it's really hard to get these two different separate mediums to share the same space. Something that a lot of people don't know about, I gotta talk about this. Sound and picture were together before the advent of tape, and it's called sound on film. And really, it makes a lot of sense as to why. Because the sound is on the film. It's literally on the film. So what do I mean by that? Well, I brought some props with me today. So I used to work at a movie theater a long time ago as a projectionist. We don't talk about those days anymore. But anyways, this is a trailer pack of 35mm film. This is literally what ran through a projector before a feature film. This is about what 3 minutes looks like, by the way, if you were curious. And specifically, this is the Tenacious D trailer. Yeah! But anyways, if we unravel this here, what you'll notice is that there's these stripes here. What those stripes literally are is the soundtrack. What you're seeing is called optical sound. Optical sound is what has been used in the movie industry since almost the beginning.
Now let us see what makes the movies talk. The sound is reproduced from a track on the side of the picture.
And the way optical sound works is it's literally photographing sound.
See how the sound was actually photographed on this film.
There's a little mirror mechanism that's shining a light onto the film. When sound hits a device, it wiggles the light, and it makes these waveforms that then you can reverse engineer that to play it back. I just think that's amazing!
My words that have been recorded on the soundtrack appear like this, as I am now speaking to you from the screen. Many of you perhaps never realize that voice and sound can actually be seen.
But there it is! So that's optical sound. Let me know in the comments if I should ever talk about my experience at the movie theaters. And there you have it! Okay, so these devices were actually put into cameras themselves. And years later, with the increasing need for newsreel cameras, came along a really, really cool camera called the Auracoin. Kind of an iconic newsreel camera, and it was used for decades and decades and decades. And these cameras actually are probably the most affordable way to shoot sound and picture synchronized. And what's more, they're also pre-blimped. I don't know if you know this, but movie cameras make a lot of noise. And it takes an otherwise really noisy sounding camera with all the motors and everything and the gears turning going, and it's just like putting a box over it going, and it makes it quiet. That would be called blimping. My little Bell and Howell was also used in newsreels, but it's what's called an MOS camera. And actually, yeah, I've got one behind me here. This you wind up, thusly, and then you can set your frame rate here. It's probably pretty accurate to being 24 frames per second, but if you're trying to sync with sound, like, forget it. I can demonstrate by just listening to the motor. You ready? Hum. And then listen. So needless to say, that's no longer in sync. Now, I knew this when I bought my movie camera, that it was a wind-up, that it was never going to be sound sync accurate, but I was curious, and I've had people comment and ask in the comments, hey, what happens if you try to? Like, basically, how bad is it? Can you never synchronize it? We have computers. They can do anything. So I kind of took it upon myself as a challenge to see, could I synchronize sound with my not sound synchronized motion picture camera? So as a vintage filmmaker, I've made some new friends along the way. Specifically, one group of people called the Vocalitas. They're very much like in the same vein of the Andrews Sisters kind of girl trio. And I gotta tell you, it is so much fun collaborating with them. Just to give you a taste of what exactly they do.
Hold tight, hold tight, hold tight, hold tight. You want some seafood, oh mama, shrimpers and rice, oh hold tight.
Yeah, you're welcome. I know, right? So, when my friends invited me to come out and see one of their shows, I was blown away, and I just kind of knew, like, oh my gosh, I have to put them on film. Like, this is too cool not to. I'm gonna talk about 3 instances. And the first time, I brought my film camera just to see what would happen. And I learned a lot. I got out there, and it was indoors, and it was very dark. And the client didn't have any lights. So I had a light, and I just always had these as kind of a backup. And this is literally all I had to light 3 girls head to toe for a musical performance. I mean, you can't get enough light out of one little light panel for film purposes. You know, I think I had ISO 100 film. Yeah, and it did not work. And I had no stand for it. I had no place to mount it. So it was like under their chins. If you weren't aware, like lighting under your chin, pretty much the worst thing ever. I'm gonna demonstrate real fast. So, this was the kind of room ambience, and there was no light on them. And I had my one light, and this is what I decided to do with it. This is unnatural. That's the kind of lighting you would use in horror movies. The reason is because, really quick, this looks okay. It's like at a 3/4 above my head. That's natural. Light rarely comes from beneath. And so to our eyes, this looks so unnatural and unsettling and scary looking. So that was my first experience shooting with the Vocalitas. So needless to say, sorry ladies, I'm so sorry. You sounded wonderful. Yeah! There was nothing that came out of that, and I watched it in horror. So this is one of those times where I have to admit, we don't always learn from our victories. Sometimes we just take them in stride and go, well, yeah, that's the way it was supposed to happen, right? But we learn immediately from our failures. And this was a failure. And I felt really bad because these were my friends. I want to do a good job for them. I want them to be thrilled with the results, and these were results that nobody would be thrilled with. But that's why we try again.
Straighten up and fly right.
The second time I went out there, this was a completely different event. This was an event that was going to be held outdoors, so we have that working for us. And it was going to be at sunset. Ooh. And we got out there, and we set everything up. I got my cameras all set up. I was feeling real good. I was like, all right, this time. And on top of it being outdoors, they brought lights. There's no way they're not going to be exposed this time. It's going to be great. This all lends itself that, generally speaking, when we're photographing people, we're not thinking about sound. We're thinking about picture. And that's what happened on this one. My idea was I would shoot kind of an old-timey music video, and I would just let the camera roll, and get an entire song. And very quickly that just didn't happen. First of all, you can only roll for about 30 seconds or less on a single wind. And so once that camera would stop rolling, you have to... Well, when you're rewinding the spring, you're missing 30 seconds or more of their performance. So you're going...
He's a boogie boogie bugle. He blows an 8 to the bar.
I got the film back. I was disappointed. Then came the third performance, and this third performance was really cool. This time, there was going to be no excuse, because not only was this outdoors and we were bringing lights, it was going to be like this super broad, wide open space. We'd all be in the sun, and I thought, good, this will be really good. And of course, as always, I don't have a lot of behind the scenes footage because I'm there to shoot the performers. No one's there to shoot me. And I had a number of people come up to me, that's such a cool prop camera you have there. And I went, no, it's not a prop. It really has film. And an old guy, almost to the point of argument, told me I was wrong. And was like, there's no way there's film in that camera. Have you even opened it up? And I went, yes, I have. And I've loaded the film in there. And he did not believe me. And I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. Because he was just adamant that you can't shoot film anymore. So this just adds to the whole reason why I started this channel, to say that, like, yeah, you totally can. It's still a thing.
Yeah, I do actually know another song about trains.
She just can't think of it right now.
Midnight Train to Georgia. Got it. We're not singing that one, though.
I've not heard of that one. Especially since you couldn't even think of the name of it.
I got some film specifically to shoot in bright sunlight. And that's ISO 50 color film. And I was just thinking to myself, they're going to love this. It's going to be real low grain. It'll bring out the colors that look real rich in the sunlight. This will be fantastic. And what happened was, when we got there, the vendor put us in a shaded area. And it just meant that everything behind them was super bright daylight, and they were in the shade. And I was just feeling like, dang it, this is supposed to be 3rd time's the charm, and instead it's 3rd times more problems. Like, you can't win sometimes. But when you have an opportunity to do something, it's better to take the opportunity and do it to the best of your ability than to waste the opportunity. As the day grew longer and the sun was starting to dip down, I realized that they were going to be finished with their performance, and they might have an opportunity to just do kind of a real quick B-roll shoot, or just something. And we had talked about the possibility of doing something like that. But what I did was I watched my film gauge, and I timed it out so that, like, basically half the film was performance-based, with me believing that, like, the background was going to be overexposed. But the other half I was going to save just for kind of like a vintage promo. And Nadia had brought this vintage luggage with her, this like little suitcase. And where we were looked like some kind of airport or train station. And they just so happened to sing a song about trains. In their act, they talk about how much they love trains.
I love trains.
And I just thought, well, let's go with that motif. And we'll just pretend that this is like one of those newsreels where they say, "Pardon me, boy."
Pardon me, boy. Is that the Chattanooga choo-choo?
That's what I had in mind when I was shooting. Just getting kind of still life, framing something up, and then having the ladies be their personalities and turning into the camera. And we shot this thing really fast because the sun was going down. I was kind of glad that we shot it that way because I knew that didn't have to be sunk with sound at any point. But of course, I had shot the other film that was all performance-based. And it came down to, once we get the footage back, now it was time to synchronize the picture and synchronize their musical performance under it. Like, was that even possible? Could I even do that? Well, yet again, you guys, I get really worried and concerned about what is the film going to look like. And when you get it back, I can't describe to you the magic that happens. It's just really gratifying. But then you play the sound that you recorded, and it's a bit daunting. Their performances go hours. And if you're recording all of it, well, that means you got to keep track of, okay, when did they perform this song? But I didn't have a slate. It was just me. There was nobody there keeping notes or anything like that. But when you watch the film, it's silent. Which part of the song does this particular part of the film go with? There's no way to know. It's a lot more work than I think you might anticipate, having been used to just, in production, shooting with timecode or shooting with audio running to the camera. But fortunately, I had an ace up my sleeve, which is this camera. This camera records audio of its own, with its own camera mic. When I would film and hit that button, it makes a little bit of noise. Enough that if you're right near this camera, the digital camera, its microphone picked up the whirring of the movie camera. So I could listen very carefully and listen to when I started and stopped. So that meant I now had an in and an out point. With that said, it didn't match. The in and the out said it was, I'll just for example, said it was, the duration was so many seconds. Let's just call it 20 seconds, right? But the film was 19 seconds. Or 20.5 seconds. It was a different amount of time than what it should have been. And this is just because it's a spring-driven movie camera. My first tactic was I matched up the video and time stretched it so that it was in sync with the reference audio. A number of you have actually asked about this very thing, so that's why I'm going into such detail about it. The rest of you out there who are not filmmakers, just know I stretched the video portion. And once I matched that in and out with the sound, I was in business.
Hold tight, hold tight, hold tight, hold tight. She wants seafood, oh mama, shrimpers and rice, oh hold tight.
It looked and sounded great, but there was something wrong with it. It sounded too clean. When you see old-timey footage, it should sound a certain way too. I know that sounds dumb, but that was just my kind of experience, was this doesn't sound authentic. So what I wound up doing was mixing old optical audio sound that I have from all my archive film reels. I just grabbed a sample of that hiss and put that over it. And then I did my best to mimic what's kind of known as the Academy curve. And that Academy curve EQ sounds a little bit like this. And that's why you hear so many old-timey movies sounding a lot like this. And they're talking as fast as I can, trying to sell you a product, Buster. And so I thought I would lend my own voice to it and do a kind of mid-Atlantic narrator voice. But in the end, the ladies had not seen what I had done, and specifically the leader of the group, Nadia. I was preparing myself mentally for how she would react to this, and I was worried she was just going to hate how she looked and sounded. And putting in all this work and all this effort really wasn't going to matter to her at the end of the day. Like, that's irrelevant. Ultimately, it's not really how you feel about something, it's what they think. And honestly, if you're a professional out there, or an amateur wanting to become a professional, you got to have thick skin. And you got to remember that, like, at the end, they're not criticizing you, they're criticizing the work, and it's all about meeting expectations. And I just wasn't sure if this would meet her expectations, exceed them, or worst case, fall short of them. So with all that nervous energy, I just put that aside and sent her a link. And this is what I sent her.
Pardon me, boy, but who's that stepping off the platform fresh from their world tour? Why, it's none other than the fabulous singing sensation, the Vocalitas. Dressed to impress the troops and heading to their next big patriotic venue. And which Vocalita members do we have this time? Why, there's the always beautiful Bailey. That ravishing knockout, Nadia. And of course, the absolutely amazing Abby. Sure, they're easy on the eyes, but how do they sound after all that travel? Well, just take a listen for yourself, Buster. Hear them perform timeless classics.
Not until you see me, not until you see me marching home, 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 sweet home. Papa loves mambo, Papa loves mambo, Mama loves mambo, Mama loves mambo.
As well as more recent numbers with a vintage twist, perfect for any occasion.
I did it again. I I played with your heart.
And of course, their performances are always live, not to mention lively.
Hold tight, hold tight, hold tight, hold tight. She wants seafood, oh mama.
So don't be like this poor fella and miss the train. Get on board with the Vocalitas and book your next nostalgia trip today. Please mind the doors. Por favor, manténgase alejado de las puertas.
Now, I'm biased, and when I watch that video, I can't help but smile and just think it's like the coolest thing ever, because it's like time travel. You know, it looks and sounds like it was shot in the 40s or 50s or something, but it wasn't. It was shot this year, you know? So when she came back with her feedback, she said, and I quote, "I love this," all caps. And she was ecstatic about it. And I was like, phew! And that's what I would encourage you guys out there who have been asking me about, hey, what is it like to take a non-sync camera and shoot something and sync it up? There's your answer. It's a lot of work. I don't recommend shooting this way, you guys. Can you do it? Theoretically, yes. You can get away with doing it like this. Should you plan to shoot more this way? Please, no. No! I would much rather shoot with a synchronized camera, something like one of those old CM72 Aurochrons. But yeah, those are still around. People still shoot with them. In fact, there's a whole community of people actually that are still shooting on those. I haven't yet invested in one of those cameras because they're a little pricey. But wouldn't it be cool to see the Vocalitas do an entire number with one of those cameras? So if you're kind of a fan of this idea and you'd like to help me realize this goal, I put up a Buy Me a Coffee account, so feel free to contribute to that. Or alternatively, if you're a person who owns one of these camera systems and you're kind of in the Florida area, or I don't know, we can work something out where I can borrow one, that'd be cool. I'll pay for the film. I'll go shoot the Vocalitas. We'll all have a good old time. It'd be great. I'd like to say thank you to the Vocalitas for allowing me to do this awesome collaboration with you. This has been one of the most sincere joys of my life. Please support them wherever you can. They're on all the social medias. I'll put all the links. Again, if you're new here, please subscribe. It makes a big difference in this channel and in my life. And again, I am so thrilled to have over 500 subscribers. This is insane. And I'm thinking about doing a Patreon, but I don't know. I feel like I need like 1,000 subscribers before I do a Patreon. So if you like this stuff, let's get 1,000 subscribers. I'll do Patreon. And then we'll just keep rolling, man. We'll just keep this machine going. What else do you say at the end of one of these? Oh, like, I guess. Do the like thing down there somewhere. And all the social media stuff. Just do it. Just do it right now. Well, that's going to do it for me, folks. I'm Andy the Vintage Filmmaker. And until next time, here's to seeing a little more vintage in our movies. Like, this is where I might sit, or I might sit here. This is technically where I like to sit most. But sometimes I might do this! Sorry. This is the first time I've done this without a prompter, but I'm all hopped up on caffeine, so it should be great. Hi everyone. Hi. Nothing feels natural anymore. All right, where to begin? The story of my life started when I was a little boy born on my birthday as a baby. What is it called? Let's get coffee? Give me coffee? Send me coffee? I set up something about coffee. Sound. It's what we're all here for. No, it's not. I don't want anyone to get upset. I want this channel to be like listening to Bob Ross. Just be happy. Just everything's nice. There's a lot of stuff out there that'll get us stressed out, but not here. Here, I'm the one who stresses for your entertainment. There's someone outside. I don't know how much longer I can record. Oh, they're gone. Okay. I'm not even wearing a wire.